He ran over what he knew of Nightmare Moon's reign, but nothing stood out to him. Records of her rise and her time on the throne would all just refer to her as Nightmare Moon. Records he had been able to get of the time after that referred to her as Nyx. That was the problem. There was no time when, in the records, Nyx and Nightmare Moon had been treated the same. There was nothing equivalent to a change of name form. Unless... Colin's mind hooked onto something. A last, desperate hope. He jumped up from his seat and began to race through the stack of records, looking for a familiar corner of the halls. He made a right, a left, and another right. He galloped with all the speed his hooves could muster. And then he skidded hard to a stop in front of a key part of the shelves. Horn glowing, he began to rifle through the records as the clerk came running after him, holding stacks of papers he had left behind.
Sir, we are closing in 5 minutes. You may not remove any more records. Just give me a second. Sir, you may not. Just one more. Sir, you may not.
Colin glanced to his side for a brief moment, and then, with a quick thrust of his hoof, knocked the papers from the clerk's magic. They flew wide, and Clark yelped as he tried to use his magic to gather the pages before they managed to disappear beneath the shelves. At the same time, Colin used the precious moments he had gained to continue to search for the record he prayed existed. And then he smiled.
Get out!
Colin was tossed on the front door of the Office of Records into a pile of snow before the clerk inside pulled the door shut with a snap. Still, despite the snow chilling his spine, Colin was smiling. He pulled himself out of the pile, grinning ear to ear before he turned around and flopped back. It began to roll into soft snow, which had just cushioned what would have been a hard landing against Canterlot stone streets. Having fun? Colin lifted his head, directing his smile at Quicksnap, who was standing nearby with eyebrows cocked.
Yes, I am,
Colin replied as he pulled himself out of the snow. He slipped up beside Quicksnap, putting a hoof around his partner's shoulder.
'Cause you know what I got a glimpse of in there? I got a glimpse of the evidence we need to blow this whole story right apart.
What did you find? Quicksnap asked, unable to deny his curiosity.
I found Nyx's official, royally endorsed letter of pardon.
Colin bounced on his hooves a little, unable to contain his hesitancy.
Oh, it had it all, Quicksnap. The letter of pardon bore Nyx's name. It was a pardon for her, but the crime described were the crimes of Nightmare Moon. It described the attack on the palace, the attack on the princesses, the coup, and the theft of the elements of harmony. And why would Nyx need a letter of pardon for those crimes, unless...
Colin held out a foreleg to Quicksnap, quickly motioning with his hoof with a waning grin. He was asking his partner to fill in the final blank. Quicksnap nodded his head in understanding. Yeah, I see. Why would Nyx need a letter of pardon unless she's Nightmare Moon?
Exactly! Colin sang. Oh, it's a story of a lifetime. And we're going to bust it wide open. We have almost everything we need. We have the story. We have the evidence. Now there's only one thing we need.
What's that? Colin moved up to Quicksnap, facing his partner dead on. His smile remained strong, but a hungry ambition replaced the triumphant joy in his eye. He lifted a hoof and set it on Quicksnap's shoulder.
We, my dear friend, need a picture.
But we have pictures of her, Quicksnap pointed out. We took them at the festival when we saw her with Cadence and Twilight Sparkle.
She was disguised at the festival. I don't know how, but the how doesn't change what we need. We need a picture of her in her natural color, with the black coat of fur we saw last night. That's what will pin all this together into a perfect package. If we want papers to really sell, we have to be able to tell and show the truth.
But how are we going to get that picture? If she really is Nightmare Moon, I doubt Twilight Sparkle is just going to leave her alone.
That's true,
Colin said with a nod, though his smile didn't weaken as he threw a foreleg over Quicksnap's shoulder.
But, as our own paper proudly reported, Twilight Sparkle and her friends will be reprising their roles in Canterlot's largest heartwarming pageant. They are also going to be joined by the royal couple, Cadenza and Armor. And what loving parents wouldn't watch their own children perform with such a heartwarming tale?
What are you getting at?
What I'm getting at is simple, quick snap.
Colin said quietly, lowering his voice to a whisper.
With all of her family and all of her adopted mother's friends involved in the pageant, who is to keep an eye on Nyx?
Great! Now there's no way out! We're trapped! Rainbow Dash huffed, waving her hoof to the left side of the stage, where a large piece of wooden set dressing had been rolled into place from behind a curtain. It looked like a thick, solid ice, craggy and impossible. Rarity huffed and lifted a hoof, pointing accusingly. You two deserve this horrid fate! You've done nothing but argue and fight with each other! You've been fighting too, your highness! Rainbow Dash asked. Yeah, worse! I haven't been fighting nearly as much as you! Pinkie Pie taunted, like a school filly, as he stood perfectly still in a particular spot on the stage. At the same time, from below the wood boards at the mare's feet, stage hooves began to raise blue-tinted pieces of jagged-looking glass. The panes of glass slowly rose up, making it look like Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Rainbow Dash were slowly being frozen solid. How ridiculous! Identical never slips to fighting! Rarity snapped with a toss of her head. That's because you whipping unicorns know you never win! Rainbow Dash shouted as the pane of glass continued to rise up from the stage. Earth ponies are numbskulls! And with that, the glass clicked into place, and Rainbow Dash froze, holding still as possible. Her mouth was even open, as if it would be caught in mid-shout. From the audience sitting, she may as well have been frozen in place. Pegasus brutes! Rarity shouted, before the glass beside her clicked into place. Unicorns are snobs! Pinkie Pie added, with a final shout for the three mares, who played the roles of the tribal leaders. At the same time, Twilight, Applejack, and Fluttershy continued to play their roles. They backed away from their friends, slowly moving toward the center of the stage, where they stumbled into one another. They breathed a sigh of relief only for a moment, but then yelped and tensed up as the most horrible, haunting sound came from the air above them. A sound so dreadful it threatened to freeze the blood in their very veins. Ooh! Stop! Celestia rose from her seat and strode down the center aisle of the theater, seeing that had been assembled in one of the largest halls of Canterlot Palace. She moved towards the stage, where several familiar faces turned to look at her. It was the dress rehearsal of the palace's heart-warming pageant, which was itself Celestia's favorite way of celebrating the season. She had started the tradition of the pageant and, when she could spare the time, was always the pageant's director. So far, the pageant's dress rehearsal was going well. The costume and set were in order. Every pony was remembering their lines. Her faithful student was pulling off a splendid Clover to Clever. She said no, she met her. And all of Twilight's friends were performing their roles just as excellently. Celestia said no if they were doing it, because she's met them. They all had a bit of talent, which Celestia was proud to present to all of Canterlot. There were, however, some who weren't natural thespians. A single flap of her great wings carried Celestia onto the stage. The scene they were portraying was arguably the darkest moment of the pageant. The leaders of the three tribes were becoming frozen in place, and Twilight, as Clover, was going to take notice and elaborate on the existence of Wendigos. And this year, the Wendigos were being played by Shining Armor and Cadence. That, unfortunately, was part of the problem. Cadence, Shining, can you please come down? The royal couple descended to the stage. Cadence killed herself aloft by her own wings. Shining Armor had been suspended by a levitation spell cast by a unicorn that was behind the scenes. They both looked at the part of Wendigos. Ghostly, wintry, and their natural height made them look more menacing compared to the rest of the actors on stage. One of those ponies, of course, was Minuet. Is there something wrong? Cadence asked as her hoofs touched down. It's just a small thing, Celestia assured, before looking to every pony else. Feel free to take a break for a few minutes, every pony. We shouldn't be long. Twilight, her friends, and the rest of the actors, and the stage hosts nodded, and began to disperse from their places on the set. Some went backstage to sit, rest, and drink some water. Others just lingered amongst the set pieces, chatting about how the rehearsal had been going. Cadence. Celestia began as she focused her attention on her niece. I'm afraid your rendition of a Wendigo is just a bit off, particularly in the sound. Well, I've never heard what a real Wendigo sounds like, Cadence admitted. Don't worry. It's completely understandable, and I'm sure you'll be able to pull it off. Still, allow me to provide a little guidance. Celestia took a few steps back and struck a firm stance on the stage, as if she herself was performing. The ghostly sounds you were making earlier were well suited for stories told to small cults of fillies at a campfire, and I'm sure you put them to great effect during your career as a full sitter. But the sound of window keys is much more natural, more instinctual than that. They are spirits, yes, but they are equine spirits. You should be whining from deep in your chest. Make it almost guttural. At that, Celestia reared back, furrows waving in the air, as she unleashed a whinny that startled several of the ponies on stage who hadn't been paying attention. It was a wild sound, something few would expect to come from the usually well-composed Sun Princess. Still, Celestia wielded the sound like it was a fine instrument. She had perfect control, and was able to bring it to a solid end as she allowed her forehost to drop back to the stage with a firm stomp. And the short performance was met by applause from every pony in attendance, to which Celestia politely bowed. Oh, thank you, she said, before looking back at Cadence. And I hope that gives you an idea of what I'm looking for. Cadence and Shining nodded, going off to practice as Celestia strode amongst the other actors. And focus on your practicing and not your kissing, you two! She gave compliments when it was appropriate, and successes where they were needed. She was as skilled at directing as she was at teaching, as Twilight could attest. She was a Renaissance mare, though gaining expertise in a number of hobbies is easier when one has centuries of eternal youth to do so. Twilight, Celestia said as he approached her student, who was looking over a copy of the script. It's good to see you remember your lines as well as you did last year. Thank you, Princess, Twilight said with a courtly brow. Though that winning you demonstrated put most of us to shame. You're really good. Why don't you ever perform at the pageant? I wouldn't mind taking the stage like every pony, but I have other responsibilities. There are ponies to meet and greet at the reception before the pageant. There are dignitaries I must sit with during the show. It gets so bad I can't even direct some years. And sadly, I'm not even going to be properly enjoying the cast party this year. I only have time to make a short appearance before Luna and I are expected elsewhere. But don't worry, Princess Celestia said, noticing a concerned frown form on Twilight's face. The only thing I have on my schedule for tomorrow is the party. I haven't had a chance to make the acquaintance of your friends' families, but it's been something I've been looking forward to. I'm sure every pony is eager to meet you, Princess, Twilight said, a frown turning into a relieved smile. Celestia chuckled a little. Yes, that does tend to be true. Still, where are your mother and father? With the rest of your family and friends here, I'm surprised they aren't watching the rehearsals. The house was kind of a disaster after lunch, so they stayed behind to clean up, Twilight admitted. That and my mom's insisted all of my friends stay at her house, and she's making some preparations. It's going to be interesting having every pony crammed into my old bedroom, but it should be a lot of fun. It'll be a heartwarming slumber party, though I hope this time Rarity and Applejack don't bring a tree branch crashing through my bedroom window.